Hi friends, what's up? It's Jamie here. Welcome back to another Fangirl Fridays video. As you guys might have seen, recently I posted a YouTube Shorts about International Trans Day of Visibility where I highlighted some trans authors. So for today's Fangirl Fridays video, I thought that it might be fun to go into a little bit more detail about the trans authored books that are on my TBR currently, while also showing you guys some of the new books that I have. And so without further ado, let's get into the video. As you can see here, I have two new books. I'm very excited. These books are actually the monthly book picks we have for April for the book club that I'm a part of. I'm going to eventually make a whole video about this really awesome book club that I'm a part of. But basically the basic rundown is I'm a part of a book club. It's called Sapph-Lit. It is a sapphic/queer book club where we prioritize sapphic and queer representation and writers and literature. It's so much fun. I've been having so much fun being a part of this book club. It's such a nice community. I haven't been a part of it for too long. I joined in like late February, I think. So I haven't been a part of the book club for too long. But I've just been having an absolute blast. And these are our April picks for the month. And so we do a fiction and a nonfiction. So here they are. Here is our fiction pick. It is called Scorched Grace. It's by Margot Douai. I believe that's how you say it. And then Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H, which is our nonfiction pick. So because I want to talk about all the trans authored books like together, I'm quickly going to go through Scorched Grace, which first of all, can we just, a round of applause for, can we have a little commotion for this book cover? Like, oh my gosh. If y'all been watching my recent book videos on the channel, if you haven't noticed, I've been on a little bit of a book kick. I am such a sucker for a beautiful cover design. Look at this cover, y'all. I love the colors. I love that it's like stained glass inspired because it's about nuns and it's like church. It's like, ah! Oh my gosh. I have never been like so in awe. I've never been so in awe of a nun before in my life. So I'm quickly going to read the little summary on the book sleeve, just so, you know, to paint a better picture of what the book is about. So it says, Sister Holiday is more faithful than most, but she's no saint. When St. Sebastian's school becomes the target of a shocking arson spree, the Sisters of the Sublime Blood and their surrounding New Orleans community are thrust into chaos. Patience is a virtue, but punk rocker turned nun, Sister Holiday, isn't satisfied to just wait around for officials to return her home and sanctuary to its former peace, instead deciding to unveil the mysterious attacker herself. Her investigation leads her down a twisty path of suspicion and secrets, turning her against colleagues, students, and even fellow sisters along the way. And to piece together the clues of this high-stakes mystery, she must at last reckon with the sins of her own past. Ooh. Hey y'all, so apparently Scorched Grace has not been the most well received by my book club. A lot of people have had some very strong feelings about the book one way or the other, but this also happened with our March fiction book After Sappho, and despite that book being very flawed on many levels that honestly I can make a full video about, I still ended up liking that book more than I thought I would because I went into that book thinking I was going to hate it. So I guess I'll just see what happens with Scorched Grace. I make a monthly YouTube shorts of all the books I've read that month, so stay tuned for that if you want to see my thoughts for this book, what they end up being. So moving into our trans authored books, first off we have Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H. Oh my god, I'm so excited to read this book. I've heard so many good things about it from within the people in my book club, but also just like people in general who've been reading this book and loving it. Also, can we just, once again, just make a little commotion for the cover? I think it's so beautiful. I absolutely love the colors, and it's just, oh my god, I'm like drooling over all these covers. But I mean, come on now, like we gotta appreciate these covers because they look fantastic. Like, oh my gosh, I love the colors, bro. So Hijab Butch Blues, it is a memoir, and I'm about to read the summary to you guys right now, but basically it is just like chronicling Lamia's like coming of age of accepting her queer identity, while also tying in her identity as a devout Muslim. And okay, let me just read the summary because it's so captivating, and I'm so excited. When 14-year-old Lamia H. realizes she has a crush on her teacher, her female teacher, she covers up her attraction, an attraction she can't yet name, by acting out, both as a class clown and an overachiever. Born in South Asia, Lamia moved to the Middle East at a young age and has spent years feeling out of place, as if her own desires and dreams don't matter, and it's easier to hide in plain sight, to disappear. But one day, in Quran class, she reads a passage about Miriam that changes everything. When Miriam learned that she was pregnant, she insisted no man had touched her. Could Miriam, uninterested in men, be like Lamia? From that moment on, Lamia makes sense of her struggles and triumphs by comparing her experiences with some of the most famous stories in the Quran. She juxtaposes her coming out with Musa liberating his people from the Pharaoh, asks if Allah, who is neither male nor female, might instead be non-binary, and drawing on the faith and hope Noah needed to construct his ark, begins to build a life of her own, ultimately finding that the answer to her lifelong quest for community and belonging lies in her owning her identity as a queer, devout Muslim immigrant. Please forgive any of my mispronunciations, which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they were all mispronunciations. I really did try my best. I'm so sorry. But anyway, so I am really excited to read this book, mainly because from what I understand, for what people have been talking about it in the Sapph-Lit group, but also just in general, what people have been saying about Hijab Witch Blues, is that apparently, again, I don't know if this is like if this is how the chapters are divided up, or if this is like sections within chapters. I'm not really sure yet. I guess I'll find out. But basically, for my understanding is that Lamia will have like selected a passage from the Quran, and then that will be kind of like the theme, and like we'll use that passage, that religious text, to like subsequently like tie in their own like queer identity and queer experiences. And I think that's so interesting, and I'm so, oh my god, I'm so excited to read this book. And it's definitely going to be not like anything I've ever read before, because I usually don't really read books that talk about just like any really religion like in that much capacity. And so I'm what's the word, I'm agnostic. I'm not atheist, but I'm like agnostic in that I don't practice any like religion. So I'm not like Muslim, but I'm very interested to become more familiar with the Quran again. Hopefully, God, I hope I'm saying that right, but I'm not so confident in that. But yeah, I'm so excited to learn more, because I also when I was reading, I've talked about them on the channel, books by Huda Fatmi. Oh my gosh, those are some of my favorite books, otherwise known as Yes, I'm Hot in This on like Instagram. I absolutely love her, and I especially really loved her book That Can Be Arranged, where I feel like I just learned so much more about Islam like in that book, and I thought it was just really interesting. So I'm very excited to learn more about the Quran, like, because again, it's not a religious text I'm particularly familiar with. Not that I'm particularly familiar with any religious text, but I'm excited to learn more, and I'm so excited to see how Lamia ties in those passages within like their own like coming of age, like queer coming out, like I'm oh my god, I'm so excited. Our next trans authored book, also I don't think I mentioned it in the previous section, but Lamia H is non-binary, so that's why I included her in that section. But yeah, so our next trans authored book, this is actually a book I've already read, so it's not actually like currently like on my TBR, but I really wanted to highlight it anyway. So we have, this is also you're about to see how long I've had this book for, because it is so worn. We have Some Assembly Required by Erin Andrews. This is also a memoir. This is my advanced reading copy that I've had for almost 10 years now. So it's very it's very worn. But yeah, so basically Some assembly required. This was the first ever book I ever read by an openly trans author. This was like really around the time where I was even learning what like transgender meant. So this was like, I at the time, because again, oh my gosh, so like almost 10 years ago. Actually, I'm trying to remember when I got the book specifically. But I was young. I'm 21 now, so it was like many years ago again. Like I didn't really know like what transgender meant. I didn't know any trans people, like at least openly trans people in my personal life. And so this was really my first exposure to an insight into like what it's like to be trans. If you're wondering how I got this advanced reviewer copy of Some Assembly Required, I got it, I had gotten like this like, basically this like box of books from my local library. From my local library, me and my brother, we used to like volunteer and like kind of like work there. So we ended up, at the end of like our volunteering, we got like this big box of books that our librarian gave to us, and so this was one of the books in there, so that's how I got it. I owe her, like, oh my gosh, she really did me such a solid by giving this book to me, so I absolutely love her for that. But yeah, so it's been also a really long time since I've read this book, but it was so good. I really do recommend it. I'm probably gonna go back and read it now, because I feel like there are probably definitely things, because I was so young when I did read this for the first time, that there were probably things that like kind of went over my head and that I didn't really fully understand. So I'm definitely probably going to at some point go back and read this book. But I definitely just highly recommend it in general. I think that Aaron has such a strong, like, they have such a good like writing voice, and I love him. I think I just remember this book really profoundly touched me when I was younger, and so very much recommend it. Highly think that you will not regret reading this book. I absolutely loved it. For the last book that I'm going to talk about, I don't have a physical copy because it's an audiobook. I bought the audiobook on Spotify. Because actually, side note, I've really been like enjoying like listening to audiobooks through Spotify. But anyway, so this final book, it is called Nevada. It's a novel by Imogen Binney. I have the little plot summary here. I'm very excited. I was introduced to this novel over the course of, I talked about this in the YouTube shorts that I did a little bit for International Trans Day of Visibility, but recently there was a trans rights readathon, and I had seen that Spotify had like posted about like certain audiobooks that they have by trans authors, and Nevada was one of them. So that's how I became familiar with this book, and that's why I ended up ultimately buying it. But yeah, so I'm gonna insert a picture somewhere about like what it looks like, but yeah, so very excited to read it. I have it. I'm gonna honestly probably play it. I like to play my audiobooks when I'm driving, so that's probably what I'm going to do later today. But yeah, so here is the plot summary. When Maria finds out her girlfriend cheated on her, she spirals out of control, stealing her girlfriend's car and I'm sorry, I did not read the summary beforehand. Stealing her girlfriend's car and buying heroin before heading west on a journey of self-discovery. In Nevada, she meets James Hansen and immediately realizes that James is also transgender but doesn't realize it yet. The two travel to Reno together. Maria frequently lapses into long internal monologues throughout the book, reflecting on gender, heteronormativity, and social conditioning. I was not prepared for the little roller coaster that plot summary took me on. I did not read it beforehand. Maybe I should have, but oh, you got my live reaction to the plot. Reading the summary, I'm very much getting like, I feel like this little blurb gives off like Thelma and Louise kind of like vibes and like energy. That's kind of like what I'm getting from this, at least. I watched Thelma and Louise for my first, I had to watch it for my first ever screenwriting course that I took in college. And I actually really enjoyed it. I don't always enjoy the movies that we have to watch for my screenwriting classes, but anyway, that's not important to this at all. But yeah, but just because it's like, you know, like stealing a car and like going on a road trip. I don't recall where Thelma and Louise is set, but I kind of remember it having also like desert vibes, and they're in Nevada, so like that's kind of like where I'm also kind of like making that connection a little bit. And yeah, so I'm very excited about this story. I also think it's going to be really fun because I'm definitely going to probably listen to the bulk of this book like in my own car while I'm driving. So I feel like it's, and like they're driving, like they're like on a road trip and I'll be in my car, and so like I feel like that'll be a fun experience. And yeah, so I don't really have that much else to say because I have not read the book yet, but when I do, I probably at some point, I just I have so many books I want to talk about. I'm definitely going to talk about just like collectively. I already have this plan for Pride Month. I'm going to talk about like all like the queer trans books that I've read for Pride Month. So stay tuned for that video. But yeah, so I'm excited to read this book. I'll probably honestly be reading it at the same time as Hijab Butch Blues, because like I'll be reading this one in the car and then Hijab Butch Blues I'll be reading like any other time, you know, just like when I'm like at work or like whatever, you know. So I'm excited. I'm so excited. Anyway, that's all I have for today's Fangirl Fridays video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please let me know down below in the comments if you have any recommendations for any trans authored books. Particularly, I'm really on the hunt for books by Black trans authors. So if you have any recommendations for those kinds of books, like I would really appreciate it, because I kind of noticed when I was putting together my YouTube shorts for International Trans Day Visibility, I was like wait a minute, I'm like not a single one of, actually one of the authors in that short that I mentioned briefly was a Black trans author, but all the others weren't, and I was like that just cannot do. So I feel like it's just, I need to be more aware of other Black trans authors, because I'm sure there are other ones out there and I just don't know. So please leave them down below in the comments if you know any. And yeah, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.